Today, I want to talk about the history of an inspired founder and one of America's most iconic food and beverage brands. That founder is Leroy Allen, and that brand, his legacy, is A&W. Roy Allen was a successful hotelier and entrepreneur who saw an opportunity in 1919 to sell root beer. His timing was perfect in several ways. It was a hot day in June, and people were in good spirits at a parade in Lodi, California, celebrating the return of World War I veterans. At a more macro level, the temperance movement in the United States was at an all-time high. The 18th Amendment passed earlier that year, formalizing the beginning of the Prohibition era. Root beer was an obvious substitute for people needing a refreshing, non-alcoholic beverage. Roy's root beer stand did fantastic, and over the next couple of years he opened up several more. Roy partnered with Frank Wright, an employee at the Stockton stand, and combined their last names into A&W. Even though Roy bought out Frank's ownership a year later, the name A&W stayed the same. A&W continued its swift expansion, becoming the first franchise chain restaurant in the United States. Despite setbacks related to the Great Depression and World War II, A&W became enormously popular and had a footprint all over the United States. By 1967, A&W had more than 2,400 locations in the United States alone. For comparison, McDonald's had less than 1,000. Dairy Queen was a little more popular, but that's a story for another day. Today, A&W is an underdog in the fast food world, at least in the United States. To put it in perspective, here's some data about different fast food chains in the United States and the number of locations per million people. There are over 40 McDonald's restaurants for every million people in the US. Burger King is about half as popular with just over 20. Wendy's is about the same. Jack in the Box trails considerably with just over 6 locations per million people. Fittingly, Five Guys has just over 5. A&W today has about 1.7 locations per million people. That means that A&W is 95% less popular than McDonald's. Back in 1966, A&W had just over 12 locations per million people. So you could say that A&W is 86% less popular now than it was 60 years ago. And that's despite an incredible nationwide TV ad from 1999 that should have propelled them to glory.
Mr. Dumbass, I can bring a lot to Dumbass and Dumbass. I'm a go-getter. Dumbass material all the way. So, am I your man, Mr. Dumbass?
The name is Dumas.
That's pretty thick-headed, but nothing compared to the rich, thick, frosty mug taste of an A&W root beer. With A&W, it's good to be thick-headed.
What a dumbass.
The purpose of this video isn't to disparage A&W. With slogans like All American Food and the taste America grew up with, it really should be doing better. And it's the only fast food chain that I'm aware of that makes its root beer on location. That of course means that they're adding sugar, water, and root beer concentrate together. Heck, A&W even invented the bacon cheeseburger, and that deserves everyone's respect. My intent with this video is to explore whether A&W is underrated, especially given the chain's popularity next door. You see, while A&W flies under the radar in the United States, it's the second most popular food chain in Canada. While the US has 1.7 A&W locations per million people, Canada has over 27. It's everywhere. A&W wasn't introduced into Canada until 1956. And in 1972, the Canadian franchises were sold to Unilever to be run as an entirely independent company. This created differences in the menu, the ingredients, and the marketing. I live within a couple hours of the Canadian border, so I decided to dedicate an afternoon to visit A&W locations in both countries and compare the experience. I couldn't sample the entire menu, but I did my best to highlight the similarities and differences that I observed. My journey starts in Bellingham, Washington, a beautiful college town located just 22 miles from the Canadian border. I'm visiting a joint A&W and KFC. which is a partnership that started back when the brands were owned by the same parent company. While that ownership structure changed 13 years ago, the location sharing strategy has continued in many areas. The restaurant is visually halved, and the menu offers a best of both worlds approach. Let's go ahead and dive in. This is Daryl with Sodafry. We're here at our first stop of the A&W World Tour. I'm in Bellingham, Washington, at a joint A&W KFC. So what I ordered here is the classic burger, what is the most comparable to what's sold up in A&W Canada, but I also got the sides that are differentiated between the two different countries as well. So we have the regular French fries served in a KFC container, because that's where we're at. Take a look, these are fairly thick. They have a nice batter on the outside. They're nice and soft on the inside. I love the seasoning on these. They're really, really tasty. Let's move on to something else unique. These are the chili cheese fries. Same fries, same KFC kind of container, but these have a gloopy helping of chili and a processed American cheese. Use my trusty fast food spork in order to dig in, because this is a mess. These are actually really good. I grew up on canned chili. I know it's not highbrow, but the chili combined with the well-seasoned fries with the creamy American cheese, this is spot on. I think it's a legit good side. Here's what might be the star of the show. In the US, we have deep fried cheese curds. They're little individual nuggets, and they're lightly battered, but this is grease on grease. It's greasy cheese, put in the deep fryer. It tastes good. I didn't get any kind of sauce. Some kind of spicy sauce or sweet sauce would really help offset the heavy, just weight of that grease profile. So they're still decent, but I think it's just too much. Here's a big problem I have with, I don't know if it's just this location of A&W in the US, but maybe since this is shared with a KFC, they don't have the frosted mugs. They have paper cups that you fill yourself of the root beer. Give it a try anyway. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of this US standard of root beer. A&W was one of the first to do it, and I think they're still doing it really well. It's creamy, it's got a lot of vanilla notes to it, a little bit of caramel. Even from the fountain, no frosted mug, it tastes good. So, great job A&W on maintaining that. I just wish you had the presentation of that mug. The burger menu between A&W in the United States and A&W in Canada is very different. So they do have Papa burgers here in the United States. They're almost exactly the same to the double bacon cheeseburger, but obviously the double bacon cheeseburger has bacon. I'm going to compare the double bacon cheeseburger to the teen burger up in Canada. So down here in the US, double bacon cheeseburger. This is a tall boy. It's bigger than I thought it would be, but it's got all the standard fixins on it with the special sauce as well. So 2 patties, I think they are 3-ounce patties, so a total of 6 ounces. Let's dig in. You know what? This is a good fast food burger. The patties themselves are really nicely seasoned. A&W does have a special seasoning blend, theoretically, but the vegetables are nice and crisp, like almost a la In-N-Out. Not that far, but lots of cheese, good meat. The bun is nice and soft. You can see it's just a plain bun. Got pickles, bacon, lettuce. This just looks like mayonnaise to me, not a special sauce. But all in, I think it's pretty tasty. We'll see how this compares to the burger up in Canada. With my Nexus Pass in hand for a quick border crossing, we drove 25 miles north to to an A&W location in White Rock, British Columbia. There are 3 A&W restaurants north of Seattle in Washington state. Once you cross the border into BC, there are 190. All right, same thing, new location. We are up here in White Rock, Canada, and we crossed the border, I don't know, about 20 minutes ago. We went to one A&W spot, ended up to be in the food court of a mall, so it wasn't what we wanted. But we are here, seated down, and got our frosty mug of root beer. Ah, that hits. This time, we got the double teen burger, because that's the closest to the double bacon cheeseburger back in the US. An order of fries and an order of poutine. That should be enough differentiation. So let's get into it. Starting with the fries. These are thick cut, maybe fresh cut russets, and there's a little bit of seasoning on them. They don't have any kind of other breading or coating like the ones back in the US did, but you can see a little bit of skin. These come in this sweet basket. They're fresh, they're salted, they're good. Okay, next thing. Let's move on to the poutine. We had cheese curds in the US, we have cheese curds in Canada too, but they just come on the form of fries with gravy. So these are piping hot. You can see the cheese curds are already melting down and stretchy. That's a good sign. It's a nice brown gravy, like turkey gravy. Cheese curds are nice and stretchy and fresh. The fries are already super soggy, which you'd expect. But if you have never had poutine before, this isn't a terrible version of it. So for fast food, I think it's pretty decent. Jumping into the teen burger here, we have 2 patties. We have tomato, we have cheddar cheese, bacon, lettuce, and pickles, onions. Looks like ketchup and mustard. Oh, there's a sauce on here too. It looks like mayonnaise, but I think they have a fancy name for it. Let's give it a try. These patties are taller. The burger itself is also kind of narrower and taller too. It's not as well seasoned. It's probably better quality beef. Overall, it's a good burger, but I like the American one more. I'm gonna try the root beers head to head. So I'm here in Canada. I have the Canadian root beer. I smuggled some of the American root beer with me in this thermos, which I don't know if that broke the terms and conditions of my store purchase, but let's try the Canadian. It's super smooth, it's super caramely, it's nice and sweet. Doesn't have as much vanilla flavor as I remember the US having, but it kind of lingers on your palate. It's great. So the US one, I don't have a mug to put it in, but try it anyway. It's kind of harsher when you first try it. It fades into vanilla and then it just disappears. I like it, but I like the Canadian one a little bit more. If the Canadian had just a freckle of vanilla, I think it'd be perfect. Could we try Canadian fries versus the US fries? Yes, we can, because I put them in a little cooler box. So, Canadian fry. Pretty good fry. Not bad at all. US fry has been sitting for 45 minutes to an hour, a little soggy. The texture is horrible, but the flavor is good, the seasoning that they put on top. I've been to other A&Ws where they actually have containers of seasoning, and it's like a special seasoning blend that you can pour on the fries. I didn't see that here, but that would make it better. Can we try the Canadian teen burger versus the US bacon double cheeseburger? Yes, we can, because I took it from the US side in my cooler box. Here's the Canadian one. You can see how tall it is. It's pretty narrow. I just tried it, it was good. I'm not gonna try it again. Here is the US one. It's been sitting for 45 minutes. That's just better. This comes down to ratios, I think, on the burgers. Since this is taller and it's narrower, you end up getting a lot more of the beef per bite. I think it throws off the balance of the other toppings in the bun. I also prefer the American cheese. I think there's more cheese on it. And this one has cheddar cheese. When I Canada has cheddar cheese instead of American. Cheddar cheese is inferior on a burger. Let's try A&W root beer from Canada in the frosted mug. Let's try A&W root beer from the store in the thermos. And before we crossed the border, I popped into a grocery store and I bought a bottle of US A&W here. So this is high fructose corn syrup, as you'd expect, is one of the main ingredients. So pop it open. Whoa! The one at the A&W restaurant is like 10 times better than the one in the plastic bottle. There's so much more flavor. I think it's probably got more sugar in it, but the concentration of like vanilla flavor as well as spices is so different than Canada. Again, that's it. That's the winner. I really enjoyed my experience at both restaurants and the adventure of international travel, even on a day trip. However, there is so much I wasn't able to try on both menus, and maybe that's a project for another day. The food in the USA was fantastic, and outside of my complaint about paper cups instead of frosted mugs, this is a recommendation I would give to anyone who is looking for some good root beer, but also a really good fast food burger. The food in Canada was also great, and I respect their commitment to all natural ingredients and a premium experience. The frosted mugs in all their sizes make this a must visit for me anytime I'm north of the border. Here's my opinion. A&W's decline in the United States has much less to do with the quality of food and much more to do with the brand's management and missteps in strategy. In 1919, Roy Allen opened his root beer stand. In 1922, Roy Allen and Frank Wright formed a partnership for A&W root beer. In 1924, Allen bought out Wright's shares in the partnership. In 1925, Roy sold the California stores to H.C. Bell and Lewis Reed, with additional franchise rights to Oregon, Washington, Nevada, and Arizona, in order to focus on A&W expansion as a franchise concept. That franchise agreement expired in 1945, and up until that point, there were many locations operated as Bell and Reed. In 1950, Roy Allen sells A&W root beer to Gene Hertz and retires from the company. There were about 450 locations at the time. In 1963, the J. Hungerford Smith Company purchases A&W root beer. They had been producing the concentrate for many years. In 1966, United Fruit Company acquires the J. Hungerford Smith Company, including A&W Root Beer Company. In 1968, the name changed from A&W Root Beer Company to A&W International. In 1970, the United Fruit Company merges with AMK Corporation to become United Brands Company. In 1971, A&W International sells the root beer concentrate part of the business to United Brands Company, which then forms A&W Beverages Incorporated, making the root beer available for retail. In 1972, United Brands sells the Canadian franchises to Unilever, separating the two companies. In 1974, Rudy the Great Root Bear is launched as a replacement for the Burger family. In 1978, United Brands Company creates A&W Restaurants Incorporated. A&W Great Food Restaurant concept is launched, which included hamburgers, salad bars, ice cream, and root beer. In 1982, United Brands Company sells A&W Restaurants to Taubman Investment Company. In 1983, United Brands Company sells A&W Beverages to an investment consortium, forming A&W Brands Incorporated. In 1986, Sonic Industries Incorporated offers to buy A&W Restaurants. The deal falls through. In 1987, A&W Brands changes name to A&W Concentrate Company. In 1993, Cadbury Schweppes plc acquires A&W Brands. In 1994, Sagittarius Acquisitions purchases A&W Restaurants. 1999, Sagittarius Acquisitions purchases Long John Silver's restaurants and consolidates A&W Restaurants into Yorkshire Global Restaurants. 2002, Tricon Global Restaurants purchases A&W Restaurants and Long John Silver's from Yorkshire Global Restaurants and changes name to Yum Brands Incorporated. 2008, Cadbury Schweppes spins off A&W Concentrate Company with the Dr. Pepper Snapple Group Incorporated. And in 2011, Yum Brands sells A&W Restaurants and Long John Silver's to a Great American Brand LLC, a consortium of A&W franchisees. Thank you for joining me on this trip. I'm hoping to document more food adventures soon, so please subscribe to this channel for future updates. I also blog over at Sodafry.com, and you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I appreciate any questions, comments, or suggestions that you might have. Stay crispy, friends.